So YouTubers, this is part 3 of my pricks and stalkers. Pricks and stalkers, yes. The pricks you meet when you're involved in crop circles. Yes. There's not many normal people you meet when you're involved in crop circles, to be honest, but, you know, and that's not being a nasty thing to say, but everybody's got their own little weirdnesses, but, you know, God knows why people feel the need to invent really crazy stories. But there's a gentleman called Mr. Andy Buckley. Now, he's famous to crop circle researchers and people in Wiltshire. Very famous. Famous for being known as a complete and utter fabricator and arsehole. Somebody that you don't basically listen to. Now, you might think, oh, that's just Matthew Williams saying, oh, because he's a government agent and because Andy Buckley's got the big stories. Yeah, Andy Buckley's got the big stories, all right. Sorry, that's just me doing snuff. I do snuff. So there's a little bit of bullshit for you. Anyway, right. Andy Buckley says things every year about the crop circle subject, things that are so fantastical that it beggars belief. Now, these range from there being animal mutilations in and around crop circles. Now, you know, these stories start to get out, you see, and it's like Chinese whispers. You know, people won't know where they've heard these stories from, and they won't know the full details behind them, and they'll kind of assume that these things must be correct then. So this is the problem, and this is why, you know, stories like this need to be stopped, and really a lot of them actually do come from Andy Buckley. A lot of the stories you hear about, you know, the crazy things that happen around bloody crop circles, I mean, a lot of them have been invented by Andy Buckley. Now, he says that he, you know, oh yes, there was mutilated animals, and I saw them, and I had a camera with me, but my camera jammed, you know, my camera, but it must have been a crop circle energy that jammed the camera, and so I haven't got any evidence, and no, I didn't pick up the body of the thing, and then we went back there, and it wasn't there, and this is a mystery, and it's like, oh, right, okay. And then it's like, I was in a crop circle and helicopters were going overhead and they were spraying stuff on us, and it was like, whoa, it was chemical warfare stuff, and they were spraying it on us, and we were like getting, oh, my head's hurting, and oh, and it's like that, you know, oh, military helicopters spraying something over a public area, spraying something over people who've got video cameras and photo cameras, and are going to go and tell people about this, right? Do you really think the military are going to be that stupid to do something like that in the middle of Wiltshire? I mean, they know the crop circles are there. You know, they go and have a look at them. They fly around them in helicopters, yeah? But this has drawn people to sort of say, oh, well, why are the helicopters here? Now, not being familiar with the area, people will say, you know, oh, the helicopters are there, the military must be around, so they must be interested in the circles. Well, they're as interested in the bloody circles as the crop circle researchers. I mean, you've got a bloody, you know, 400 or 700 foot crop circle has appeared in a field, and they've got a helicopter. Do you not think they are going to fly around the crop circle to have a look? And they might show their friends, and they'll come in their helicopters, and they'll, you know, this is, you know, perfectly normal stuff. But then you get people like Andy Buckley then inventing these stories about, oh, you know, it was doing stuff, and it was like, you know, spraying us, and like my head was going weird. Yeah, Andy, your head was going weird because you're a friggin' nutcase. Yeah, he started spreading this story around about Paul Obi, you know, who sadly committed suicide, and Paul was a circle maker. And, you know, the circumstances behind his death were, you know, a little bit sad because he's a very nice person. You know, he just decided, in what could be considered, you know, slightly cultish behaviour, if you want, that he was going to kill himself. You know, because much like people who are in cults, you know, they've got this really hardcore belief that there is an afterlife, there is something beyond. And for Paul, who was very heavily steeped in belief in paranormal and the strangeness of the crop circles, which is why he was a circle maker, you know, he knew that there were strange things going on. And you know, basically Paul decided that he wanted to see the afterlife. He wanted to be there. and he left a very nice note, which people, you know, who knew Paul got to read, and people who were at his funeral actually got to find out about. Now, Andy Buckley was not one of these people, so, you know, it's quite distressing when you hear somebody coming out with stories about somebody who's committed suicide when they don't even know that person. And, you know, Andy Buckley started telling people that Paul Obi had been killed by the military because of crop circles. You know, now Andy Buckley doesn't know Paul Obi. He doesn't know anything about his background. He doesn't know that Paul had tried to kill himself a number of times, or threatened he was going to do it, attempted to, failed, then actually did it, you know. So it's one of those classic build-up cases. You know, there's nothing mysterious about it. You could speak to his family, and you could speak to all his friends who will tell you the circumstances behind this. Now, Andy Buckley, you know, if you're watching this, you know, you've got no right, you've got absolutely no right to say something like that about this person. You know, he's decided to take his own life. If we could have stopped him, if any of his friends could have stopped him, they would have. He did it in a way that people wouldn't stop him. You know, he went to a secluded area and he gassed himself in his car. Okay? Now, there was a warning that this was going to happen. There was a sort of build up to this. There was a sort of, you know, a concern that this might happen. But when he did it, people weren't expecting it. And he did leave a note behind, and it was definitely from him. And he just said, you know, that he was very much wanting to see the other side. You know, that he'd had a good life. He enjoyed himself. He was, you know, he loved his friends, but he just really wanted to see the afterlife more. And that's why I say it's sort of like some of these, you know, tragic circumstances which happen, you know, whereby people, they do sometimes detach from reality, you know. And that's not to say, I mean, I believe in the afterlife, and I believe in ghosts, and I believe in all these things, but reality is what we are now. Reality is where we are now, you know, and this is the life we lead. And I think that, you know, it's a sad thing that Paul, he detached from this reality, and it became more alluring to him to do something else. So Andy Buckley, you know, basically, I wish you'd shove your stories and your bullshit right up your stupid arse, basically, mate, because, you know, you're not doing anybody any favours with this. And every year you're coming out with more and more crazy stuff, you know, and then people, it never goes anywhere, you know, because people know Andy Buckley well enough to know that he's just full of it. But, you know, to the end, to people who come to the area, and, you know, Andy's got a big gob on him and he likes to tell his stories, and, you know, these stories leave Wiltshire because the people that he's telling these stories to are not, they're not going to sort of get it redressed then. They're not going to, the balance isn't going to be redressed. And we know that Andy Buckley goes around the country spreading these stories. You know, now if you came to Wiltshire and then said to us, oh, well, what was that? You know, because this is how we hear about these things, you know. And we got back to Andy Buckley, and he was actually told off by Lee, you know, who's Paul's best friend, you know, his absolute best friend, Lee and Debbie, you know, and they had it out with Andy Buckley over this. And they said, what right have you got to say this? You know, and he was like, you know, and he was very, he knew it, he was, by his behaviour, you know, he was basically sort of shutting his mouth because he knew he'd overstepped the mark with saying this stuff. But this is the thing, you know. It's like you get these pricks involved with crop circles. You get these real pricks, you know, people who say, oh yeah, you know, I can see things that you can't see, like the Emperor's New Clothes, you know, like, oh, there's this energy hovering over the crop circle, but only I can see it, you know, and all these mysterious circumstances and things like that, you know, people say that there's weird stuff involved with crop circles. Well, some of it is genuinely weird, and some of it is bullshit created by people like Andy Buckley. Now, you know, call me a bastard for saying it, but there you go. There's your little bit of gossip for the week.